Chapter 4. For fear of the forest guardian's wrath, Tanith accompanied her savior on his journey. She felt certain that if she left the road or strayed away from the dog, she would be captured in another spider's web. The fox was a shapeshifter, the most powerful kind of magic user, so she could also transform into a panther or a giant bat. Such things could snatch up a baby dragon as easily as a moth. "I am George," the dog said. "I am named for my master." Tanith did not want to converse with him. She kept her head down and watched the cobblestones. The forest was very hilly in these parts, and she focused on climbing one rise after another. The layer of dead leaves coating the road was becoming very dry, falling to dust. Cricket song surrounded them, carrying the traveling pair into the dawn, when ladybugs began to wake. The red-spotted insects landed on the dragon's hide, tickling her in their fearless passage. Now and then she flicked her ears to send one into the air to catch itself on its clear little wings. "You saved me so that I would be your fire starter in the winter country," she said at length. "What will you do when that part of the journey is done? Give me to an angry village? Find a witch to enchant me?" George chuckled. "You have a wild imagination, Tanith. When the time comes to part ways, we shall do so on good terms." "That is absurd," she retorted. "We are going to the same place. You intend to slay the very dragon I wish to ask for guidance, and I wager neither of us know exactly where he is." "I know that he lives in a distant summer country," the dog said. "Everyone knows that," Tanith sighed. "He is crimson as the setting sun. To grow up to be such a glorious color, a dragon must spend many, many years in a summer country. I must join him there and find a cave to call my own." While the baby drake explained this, George noticed that her brown scales were changing color the closer they came to exiting the autumn forest. They darkened with each step. As the trees lost all their leaves and looked dingy and skeletal against the sky, so too did Tanith lose her chestnut luster. She was beginning to look as shadowy as the crows perched above their heads. "You may change your mind," George said. "You could head in the opposite direction, where I hear many dragons live in a land of volcanoes." Tanith laughed outright. "Ha! You know nothing of dragons. We never change our minds. I am an orphan in search of a teacher and glory, not a family. A dog like you with a loving master cannot possibly understand." "Then I suppose we have no choice but to continue on together," the dog said cheerfully. "Rather than race, we can assist one another. You have your quest, and I have mine." This suggestion was so astonishing that Tanith said nothing until the trees faded away completely. They had been thinning out for a while now, replaced by jagged boulders and ever steeper hillsides. Suddenly the forest fell away to reveal a towering mountain range all around them. George sniffed at the road, licking at snowflakes that fell yet did not melt when they hit the ground. Tanith bounded ahead to a stone bridge to have a look over the side at a half-frozen creek. They had come to the Winter Alps. Soon the road was all but hidden by fluffy snowdrifts. The baby dragon's scales were pitch black now, and it was such a contrasting color that George thought she would leave a trail of sooty footprints, only to see she stepped so lightly that there was hardly an impression left behind, as if the snow were shallow sand. When Tanith got tired, her tail dragged more heavily than her feet, as though a snake had braved the slopes. George made the decision to stop, and Tanith begrudgingly went about her duties as fire starter, while the dog found a giant pine to camp under. Its fat green needles were so thick, and its lower branches reached so wide, that a whole caravan would have fit comfortably in the protected circle of the ground around its trunk. Tanith used dry needles, sticks, and an old log to make a crackling fire for them to sleep by. Then George pulled off his knapsack and shared some of the meat provided by the king. After the meal, the dog and the drake sat near the edge of their camp to watch the stars come out. Owls hooted in the night, and one flew across the moon on silent wings. "Perhaps you are correct," Tanith said softly. "It would be silly to race. If you got there first, you might kill the great dragon, or you might not. If I got there first, he might accept me as a student, or he might not. I do not know what magic you carry in that bag. I do not know if the dragon wants to bother helping a youngling like me. The best thing is to present ourselves to him at the same time." George yawned so widely every one of his teeth caught the moonlight.
"I agree,"
he said drowsily.
"Let's stay together."
Spitting an ember into the fire to keep it burning through till morning, Tanith laid her head on her forepaws and went to sleep. The traveling companions were woken by the blinding sparkles bouncing off the snow beyond their camp. Wren song, woodpecker rhythm, and mourning dove cries filled the morning air. There were no clouds in the sky, transforming the landscape they had only glimpsed yesterday into a wonderland of white and blue. They could look up to clearly see the sharp points of the mountain peaks. Tanith stood and stretched, leaning back on her hind legs and then bending forward, elongating her body. "When I awoke from my dream," Tanith said, "I thought you were a pile of snow. For a moment I was sure a witch had come along and replaced you." They laughed at the idea, while George did his own stretches. He wagged his tail, the canine equivalent of a cup of coffee, and Tanith whopped hers against the cushion of reddish pine needles. Her flashing gold eyes were wide and bright as she got to work melting something for them to drink, while George stamped out the remaining cinders of the fire. Rested and quenched, they bid the evergreen bagworms in the branches farewell, leaving them alone in their cozy nest. Together, the white dog and the black drake returned to the road. Traversing winter countries is very different from passing through the others. The Winter Alps are not easy and breezy like the summer lands, nor cool and mysterious like the autumn forest. North winds, storms, and avalanches can happen at any time, and the cobblestones are nearly impossible to keep track of under inches of hard-packed snow as the way twists and turns through pines, peaks, and valleys. Mountains like these are doubly beautiful for being so treacherous. Tanith navigated the terrain easily. She was not bothered by the cold, thanks to her inner fire. Nevertheless, in temperatures like these, it was important for them both to have water. Every hour, she puffed smoke at her feet until the cobblestones reappeared at the bottom of a new puddle, confirming that they had not lost their way. Meanwhile, George would lie down beneath a fir tree to watch and warm his feet. If they were hungry, he provided food from his knapsack. Late in the afternoon, they crested a snowbank and found themselves peering down into the valley nestled between cliffs. A beautiful city sat cradled there. Built beside a waterfall that fed an icy river, an impressive stone castle loomed over the many roofs. Days in the Winter Alps are shorter, and in the purple twilight the glowing windows of the log cabins looked very welcoming. George wagged his tail again, much more vigorously than this morning.
"People!"
he exclaimed.
"What a happy sight! Do you see them all, making their way home for the night, bundled in their coats and hats?"
Looking down at herself, Tanith was not happy about the town. "Yes, I see them, George," she said, "but I do not want them to see me. They will think I am a monster here to take their livestock and gold."
"Is that not your dream for the future?" George asked.
"Right now, I am too small," Tanith replied sharply. "If I steal from them at this size, they will come after me with pitchforks that are harder than my scales."
"Well, in that case," George said, "we shall go straight to the castle."
Rather than interrupt the townspeople's supper, George and Tanith made camp again, only descending into the valley with the first rays of sun. While the drake sneaked along the edge of town to find herself a place to hide beside the castle walls, keeping her obsidian hide out of sight in a world of snow, George walked straight down the main road. He greeted everyone he saw. They were very pleased to see him, such a joyful and well-behaved mutt. Trotting through the market, he made dozens of new friends.
"I am on my way to the castle," George told them. "My master is a very wealthy man who wishes to visit someday. He will bring gifts and jewels, and buy many things to take home. Reach into my bag, and you will know this is true." Furniture makers, blacksmiths, bakers, and tanners did as the dog asked and put their hands in the knapsack. They pulled out the purse of gold coins. "Please, take one," George told them. "All I ask in return is that you tell your friends about my generous master. Everyone must be prepared for his arrival, if he decides he wants to come.
Soon, word had spread through the whole city. Someone important wanted to visit. This person was so wealthy, his dog carried a fortune in gold and was giving it away like candy. Just last year, a giant red dragon swooped in, ate every man named George, and carried off all the yaks, so the townspeople were eager for uplifting gossip. News of the charming harbinger made it all the way to the castle, where the queen's handmaidens whispered it in her ear. She quickly sent her own messenger into town to find the dog and invite him to join her at the dinner table. George graciously accepted the royal summons, but he did not go to the queen right away. First, he slipped down an alley, into a patch of pines, through the royal stables, and around the castle's outer wall to find Tanith. Using his keen nose, he quickly came across snake tracks in the snow. These he followed to the drake's hiding place. From here he could see the waterfall pouring down the cliffs behind the castle, choked with icicles thick as tree trunks. Past another grove of evergreens, not far from where the trickling water splashed into the river, he found the baby drake. She was perched on top of a tiny fenced paddock, hardly bigger around than a well. Sitting inside, chained and depressed, was a unicorn.